Hello everybody and welcome to my channel, which is very exciting. This is something that I've been wanting to do for a really long time, and I figured it was about time that I kicked it off and gave it a go. This is the first video in a little series that I'm going to be doing on things that basically I think need to be talked about in the music industry and the performance industry, and to be honest, a little bit just in life in general. So a little bit about me. I am a freelance professional viola player and I am based in Cardiff. I am 27 years old and I'm loving life. I've been out of college for 4.5 years now, just slightly scary. But over those 4.5 years, I've picked up some things about the industry, some good things and some things that I think really just need to be talked about. Not particularly bad things, just a lot of stuff that is all unspoken and people think that they're the only ones thinking it, and I know for a fact that that isn't true. So because I like to talk, I'm going to talk about it. I'm also going to be doing basically these videos but in blog form, because I know a lot of people prefer to read this kind of stuff and they can chew over it a little bit more. So I'm also going to be doing that. If that's helpful to you, I will have that linked below. I personally really like watching videos, which is why I'm doing it in the two rather than just doing a blog. I don't really tend to read, which is silly. I love reading and I can read before anybody makes any viola jokes. I see ya. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is imposter syndrome, mainly because I think this is one of the things that is most prevalent throughout this industry. Basically, it's just feeling like you don't belong there, like you're underqualified to be in a room, that everybody around you is better at what they're doing than you are, is more qualified than you are, whatever. Anything that basically makes you feel inferior to everyone around you and like you don't belong. So point number one, I would say, is realizing that nobody in that room belongs there any more or any less than anybody else. If you put it in the context of an orchestral musician, the best conductor in the world, the maestros on this planet, incredible insights into music, into artistry, whatever, they have no job without an orchestra. They are literally just stood there waving their arms around. Which, I mean, some of them do just stand there and wave their arms around, let's be fair. But they have no job without you, the musician, principal players of sections, leaders of orchestras. Again, have no job without a section to lead. They are just playing by themselves. Without sound guys, tech, choreographers, lighting, hair and makeup, the biggest pop stars in the world could not fill the O2. They couldn't put on those kinds of shows without the help of a huge team of people around them. And once you start thinking through all of these things, the amount of massively high profile people that you'd look at and go, oh yeah, but I can't do what they can do. They can't do what they do without people around them. And I think, you know, for me personally, this is particularly relevant in the context of an orchestra. That's primarily where I do most of my work. And it's so easy to look at, like I said, the principal of your section, the leader of the orchestra, the conductors themselves, and say, oh, I'm just little old me, and like, I'm just, you know, I've snuck in the back and I'm just sat at the back of the section and I'm just gonna like plug away, do my thing, and hopefully I won't bother you. And they have no job without you. So own that, acknowledge it, and take some confidence from that. They need you just as much as you need them. Everyone will have somebody, it's probably more than one person, spring to their mind who is the person that they, you know, they stalk a bit on Instagram going, oh, they're so good at what they do and I wish I could be them. They look at them, again, maybe in the context of a section and go, oh, if only I was like them, they're doing so well, they're doing all this stuff, they're playing with this orchestra, that orchestra, they've recorded this session, they're working on this film, they're filming for this TV show, all of that. And we can't help but sometimes compare ourselves to them. But that, when you actually break it down, makes no sense, because nobody can do what you do. The way you do it, the energy that you put into it, no one else can do that. And I'm not saying that in the context of you can never be that person. I'm saying that in the context of trying to turn yourself into somebody else and looking at somebody and going, I just want their life, makes no sense, because you're not them, they're not you, and they are looking at somebody else thinking the exact things that you're thinking. There are so many unspoken rules in the music industry that I just think are complete rubbish and quite frankly need to be chucked out the window. Phrases like, I should know this, or don't ask for help, I don't want to look like I don't know what I'm doing, should just be totally and utterly banned. Like, none of us really know what we're doing. We're all kind of making it up as we go along. That's called adulting. And there are just so many situations where we can sit there feeling silly because we don't know what's going on. And I don't know why we should feel silly about that, particularly if it's an environment that you've never been in before. So for example, my biggest case of imposter syndrome that I think I've ever had was the first time I ever went in as an extra in a professional orchestra, in, you know, where everybody around me is on contracts, they're all there, this is their day job, and I'm coming in as a newbie. I'd never played with this orchestra before, so I didn't know how they did things. So in an orchestral section, you've got two people sat on each desk in the strings. You have kind of an outside player and an inside player, and the inside player generally turns the pages of the music whilst the outside player keeps on going. Now, this particular orchestra sat the other way round to how a lot of viola sections normally sit. So the outside player was where the inside player would normally be, and vice versa. So I was sat in what I thought was the outside player's chair, and was on a desk with, luckily, a good friend of mine. So she was very sweet about it. We came up to a page turn, and she was like looking at me like, go on, turn the page. And I was like, what? I'm the outside player, what's going on? And then she explained to me that in that orchestra, the person sat on the right-hand side, which is normally the outside player, is actually the inside player and turns the pages in this particular orchestra. So I felt so embarrassed and so silly that I didn't know this. And honestly, it's taken me the few years since to realise that why would I have known that? How could I possibly have known that without somebody telling me? And that's not really a criticism on them. That's more just I shouldn't have been beating myself up about that. I did not enjoy the rest of the rehearsal because I was so self-conscious and embarrassed about the fact that I'd gotten the page turning, like, wrong. Things like that are just so easy to get sucked into. Ask how they do things. When you go into an orchestra, ask how they divide up the lines of music. Sometimes we have to play, you know, more than one line within a section. Ask how they divide those up on a general basis, because again, I've been caught out by that, where they're like, what line are you playing? And I'm like, the top one, or, you know, the second one, whatever. And they're like, oh, no. Here, we do the back two desks both play the lower line or something. And I'll be like, oh, okay, great. Now that I know that, that is what I will do. But if you don't know things, you don't know things. And that isn't your fault. However, I will caveat that by saying, learn from these things and learn to ask questions. Nobody will mind you asking reasonable question that otherwise you wouldn't know what to do and you might stick out of the section or whatever. They're never ever going to mind helping you to blend, because that's literally why you're there. Just because you feel a certain way about something doesn't make it true. I go back to the example I said of the page turning and me getting that wrong. I was so embarrassed and I felt like such an imposter because everybody else knew what to do and I didn't know what to do, and I spent the whole thing beating myself up. The actual fact of what happened there was that I didn't know that that was the way they did things. I learned that that's how they did things. and then I did it right from that point on. That is actually what happened. But my feelings told me that I was never going to get hired by that orchestra again because I did a page turn wrong, which makes no sense. And like I said, I have yet to meet any orchestra where that would actually be true. If you make one mistake and you're completely out forever. So learn how to sit there and go, okay, is this just something I'm feeling or is this an actual fact? So, fact, I played a massive chord in a general pause bar. Everybody heard it. Oops. But people had a bit of a laugh about it. I never did it again, and it's, you know, it's all good now. Fact. Feeling. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that. That is the most embarrassing thing ever. I will never recover from this. Everybody in this orchestra is going to know that I'm a terrible player. They're never going to hire me again. Nobody in this orchestra is going to recommend me. Yada, yada, yada. You get the picture. Feeling, fact. They are not the same thing 90% of the time. Everybody occasionally makes mistakes. So for an example, when you sit down in a room or you walk into a room and you realise that you are by far the youngest person there. Maybe you're the only man in that room. Maybe you're the only woman in that room. Acknowledge the fact that in that situation, you are going to feel a little out of place. That's natural. Acknowledge that and make sure that that doesn't then influence everything else that you do. Because it's so easy to walk into a room, immediately feel a little bit like, ooh, gay, I'm the only one here like me. And then from that point on, you can just settle into imposter syndrome so firmly that you can't really get yourself out. So recognize those instances where you are going to feel a bit out of place, maybe because you are. And that's okay. We all fail at some point or another. Maybe you go for an audition and you don't get it. Maybe you go to play to a principal and they tell you that you're not ready yet. Take everything from that and just use it to fuel you trying again. Because now you're like, okay, I know this about myself. I know that I react like this under pressure. I know that I need to not do this. I know that I need to work on this particular area of my playing. Whatever it may be, use it to help you the next time you try. Don't use them as reasons to give up, because there are people in this world that succeed on the first try, and all power to them. But if you're anything like me, you are not one of those people. And I frequently say I am not a fast learner. I have learned this about myself over a very long period of time, which is quite ironic. And I take quite a long time to really absorb things and to put them into practice. And that's okay. I know that about myself, but it does mean that I have to be really diligent about the lessons I learn being implemented as soon as possible, because I know that they take a little while to bed in. Anything that you deem as a failure, whatever that looks like to you, use it, learn from it, and apply it to the next time you try. It is not a reason to give up. When things go well, acknowledge it and give yourself some credit. You did that. You made that happen. And that is amazing. Somebody I love to follow on Instagram primarily is somebody called Chessie King, who you guys probably heard of. And she just has this incredible outlook on her body primarily, but just kind of on herself generally, of talk to yourself like you talk to your best friend. If your friend came to you and said, I just landed my dream job, how would you respond to that? You would give them a massive hug. You'd be jumping up and down. You'd be so excited for them. So why do we not acknowledge these things in ourselves? If you succeed in something and you achieve it, then reward yourself. Give yourself some credit. Like, you did that, and that is amazing. And you should not be dulling it down just because you think, oh, well, it's nothing really, you know. People have achieved so much more than me. This is just like a bit of whatever. Somebody would laugh at me being excited about this. That is so unimportant. It's not even funny. Acknowledge your own achievements and learn from them as much as you learn from your failures. Because if you've done something really well and it worked, chances are it may well work again. My teacher once said to me after I played a little extract of my piece to him, and then he was like, oh, how did you think that went? I immediately went to all the negatives. And then he just kind of cut across me and he was like, no, Heather, no. That was so much better. Acknowledge that that was better. Acknowledge the good things. And I was like, oh yeah, well, I guess that was a bit better. Like, I got that bit and the phrasing there was really nice actually. And, you know, my vibrato was working really well in that section. And he was just there like, yeah, all of that just happened. And now we can build on it again in classic teacher fashion. But he made me stop and acknowledge the fact that I had just done something better than the time before, because he wanted me to remember what that felt like so that I could use it every single time I played that piece. You have got yourself to where you are today. You did that. There may have been people that helped you along the way, but you had to be in that place for them to talk to you, for that conversation to happen. Your life is not just happening to you. I know it can feel like that sometimes, but you do have the ability and the choices to change your circumstances. And I think that is something that can be so powerful. I did a masterclass once with one of the top violinists on the West End, and her biggest piece of advice that she gave was that you never get anything that you're not ready for. And she meant it in the context of, if you're not playing with that West End band yet, or that orchestra, whatever it looks like, it may mean that you're not ready yet. So therefore, what are you going to do about it? How are you going to become ready? How are you going to make sure that when that call does come, you can just slot straight in there and you can do the job? You have the responsibility to be ready, whatever that looks like in whatever industry you're in. Obviously, like at the moment, I'm talking more specifically music and performance. You know, you've got to be on top of your game. You've got to be practicing. You've got to be making sure that you can perform to the best of your ability, so that when that incredibly exciting opportunity does come up, and it will, that you're ready for it. Which can sound very arrogant. I appreciate that, but bear with me. Nobody can do what you do. Nobody. There is no other human on this planet that can do things the way that you can. There's this quote, and I can't for the life of me remember where it's from, and I've been trying to remember, so if you know, please let me know. But it's the phrase, fully released people release people around them. And by that, I mean people who are truly living their passions and their dreams and what they were made to do, release that in everybody around them. It gives people permission to just be them. It gives them permission to be passionate and involved in what they are truly here on this planet to do. And that is incredibly exciting and an incredibly powerful thing. Think about it. If you have a conversation with a friend and they're talking about something really passionately and they're really, they're really expressive about it and all of these things, that kind of thing is so contagious. We want to be around people like that for a very, very good reason, because they encourage us to do the same. And point number 10 is not really a point, because it's just everybody gets imposter syndrome, which basically makes imposter syndrome mute. I'm joking, but you get what I'm saying. Every single person on this planet has had imposter syndrome at some point or another. All you have to do is Google imposter syndrome, and a ream of quotes from Oscar-winning actresses and actors, directors, pop stars, CEOs of multi-billion-pound companies. They have felt imposter syndrome, which kind of makes you go, oh, Okay, well, if everybody gets it, then maybe it's something that I don't need to worry about. So that's it for my first video. I really, really hope that you have enjoyed it. Please let me know if you have any more points to this, or if you have any helpful ways that you've found to deal with imposter syndrome. Please, please comment them below so that we can get this conversation really, really kicking off and just help each other, because this industry is really, or can be, really, really tough, and we all need all the help we can get. So please subscribe to my channel if you did like this and you want to see more, and I will hopefully get the next video up to you very, very soon. Bye.